Welcome to the latest edition of the Cranky Curmudgeon's Corner. My name is Paul Thomas, and this evening we are going to discuss the Republican Party. Joining me on our discussion panel are Pat Chesbrough, Merrick Moses, and Daniel Thomas. Let me give you my version of how we got here, and then we can hear your recollection. In my mind, two things happened. First was a decision from the billionaire Koch brothers to find and recruit aspiring right-wing ideologues to run for seats in state legislatures across the country. And on the condition that these candidates stay true to extreme right-wing agendas, such as climate change denial, their campaigns were fully funded by said Koch brothers. The second big event was the 2010 5-4 Supreme Court decision on Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission, which opened the door for big donors like Koch brothers to give unlimited amounts anonymously to super political action committees, creating the dark money that funds the campaigns of Republican charlatans like Jim Jordan, Mo Brooks, Ron Johnson, a number of the people that Dan mentioned earlier, and all the rest of the insurrectionists. So now we have most of the state legislatures controlled by Republicans who are proposing and passing voter suppression laws in 49 of the states that we talked about earlier. That's how we landed here. If you have another view of how we got to this point in history, I'd like to hear it. Pat, how do you think we got to this point?
I think it's a combination of ingredients. And I think the Koch brothers play a big role, but I think one of their big, most effective tools has been the American Legislative Exchange Council, A.L.E.C.
A.L.E.C, yes.
Which, of course, not only do they support candidates, but they also tell them what bills they should promote in their states.
I'm just curious, does the legislation have some connection to A.L.E.C?
This bill is my bill. It's not A.L.E.C's bill.
Well, the reason I ask is because earlier you passed out a handout that says Gottwalt at the top, and it says Healthcare Compact, and there's a logo right in the middle of that page. And I went to the A.L.E.C website, and there's exactly the same font, the same size, and the same logo. I mean, literally, it's verbatim.
And so they have an honest election project that they've been, again, telling people what they should be, what kind of language they should use, how they should promote it. And then they promote all these things nationally. So it doesn't sound like Alaska's the only one saying this is, which I think is pretty ironic because there's more Republicans elected here than any place else. And they're saying they were elected fraudulently, I guess. So anyways, but that's the other part of it. And of course, the idea that corporations are people and they can give as much money as they can. And now we have another thing that says you could give as much money as you can, no matter who you are. So obviously that means the people that have lots of money will do a lot better than people that, as far as influencing people, because people don't give millions of dollars and expect nothing in return, I don't believe.
Never have.
So I think it's a combination of ingredients, and I think it's a big trouble thing. And I think the Koch brothers and other people and corporations too, many corporations have bought into the A.L.E.C kind of thing too. And I think when we made corporations people, we made a big mistake. So.
Yeah, well, that came from Citizens United. Merrick, what do you think about the Koch brothers in combination with the Citizens United in producing what we have as far as our political situation now?
I think it goes back further. I'm going to go to Reagan. I think Reagan paved the way for this, particularly around his courting of evangelicals and big business.
I can't help it. There you go again.
It continued with Bush 1 and Bush 2. And I think that things really, really gelled when Obama came into office. That black man scared the hell out of me. And so it allowed for folks to start getting their money together so that they could defeat this thing. They also I also want to mention the Koch brothers do have HBCU, historically black colleges and universities. I don't want to say scholarships, but they do work on those campuses. And I think that they're basically trying to recruit the next generation to basically poison the planet. This is how they make their money. We need Citizens United to go away. We need that to be struck down. But as the court is fixed right now, it's not going to be. Congress really needs to find a way to control the flow of money and particularly dark money. But I'm not surprised at these people. Again, they are desperate and they're going to do whatever they can to hold on to power. That includes the Heritage Foundation, Turning Point USA, Focus on the Family, Liberty University, Bob Jones, you name it. That's what it is.
Dan, the Koch brothers, Citizens United, Moses cites Reagan. Anything else that you can think of that brought us to this point?
Why are we all forgetting about noted Antichrist Rupert Murdoch?
Well, good thing you mentioned him, so we didn't forget him.
So Murdoch's conservative media empire makes this stuff seem acceptable. He has dragged the American media so far to the right that we look at CNN and think, oh, well, I guess this is as close to fair and balanced as we get. But if you have Dr. Fauci on there talking about why vaccines work, the nice man with 50 plus years of experience as a medical doctor, you have to be fair and balanced and get some rando off the street to give a counterpoint.
There's no sound science. In fact, I'll say it again. There's no sound science that shows that you should have all populations wear masks in all circumstances.
So that's not fair and balanced. Your opinion is not the same as my knowledge. That's not how that works. That's not how experts work. But because you have this loud conservative media ecosystem and echo chamber that is very, very popular, it makes it easier for the Koch brothers to work their magic. And as I understand it, Ronald Reagan opened the door for Rupert Murdoch to come here. When you look at a country like New Zealand, where they did not let the Murdoch media empire in, they're much more progressive and able to get a lot more done. And their prime minister is like, I don't know, 30. And she's really, really good at her job. And she gets a lot of shit accomplished. And yet here...
And their COVID numbers are pretty good too, right?
Well, yes, but I'm not going to give Prime Minister Ardern full credit for the fact that her country is an island and you can just shut the border off real easy. Like it's more complicated than that. But I think that they do a better job in a lot of ways than we do because their people are more motivated by facts, and you don't manipulate the facts as much in their media ecosystem, where they did not allow Rupert Murdoch and the Fox News conservative leading area in to manufacture crises and just sow dissent.
Okay, I want to add one more thing to Dan's point, and that is Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook has been also a major contributor to what we have today.
One thing before you go on.
Go ahead, Pat.
I just looked this up. So A.L.E.C was founded in 1973. Reagan finished his term in 1989. Fox News started in 1996. So this is a long-term slog, to get this done. So it's really interesting to think about it that way, that Reagan didn't start it. It was
And also
started before Reagan, and he fed it.
he fed it also by vetoing Congress's attempt to codify the fairness doctrine, which opened the door for all this madness.
Yeah.
And he vetoed that in 1987.
Mary Trump, PhD, just wrote another book called The Reckoning. I'm becoming a big fan of that lady. I'm going to include some quotes from her new book with the next few questions. First, Mary writes, quote, still arguing about whether or not to call Donald a fascist is the new version of the media's years-long struggle to figure out if they should call his lies lies. Is the lamestream media afraid to use the word fascism when it does accurately describe the Republican agenda in the Trump era, as Mary characterizes their fear to call his lies lies? Is the media a bunch of chicken shits here? Pat, what do you think?
Well, I looked this up too.
You
And
look everything up, so that's
I
good.
know, I can't help it. So I was looking up, I found this article that what they did is they went through the aspects of fascism and they graded Trump on his adherence to those.
Okay.
And he didn't come out to be a fascist according to their thing. It was like he got 26 out of 44 points. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't have fascist tendencies or anything like that. And maybe that's the way what they should say. This is a fascist move that he makes.
Let me question your source, your guide here. Is there anybody on that had 100% or 44 out of 44? Any leader in history that got 100% fascist?
I think Hitler.
They gave Hitler a perfect score.
Yeah, and Mussolini, I think, got pretty high up there too.
Yeah. And Trump didn't get even close to them.
No, he didn't get close. But again, like I said earlier, he was very high on the whole nation and race above the individual rights thing. But he didn't have the violence, and he did not cultivate a youth movement, which is part of what the fascists did so effectively. Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. Merrick, what do you think about that? About the hesitancy of the media to call Trump a fascist? Or do you agree with Pat that he doesn't quite measure up to that characterization?
I think that Trump is definitely a fascist. According to one of his ex-wives, I think the ex-wife was Marla Maples, said he slept with a copy of Mein Kampf on his nightstand. That's telling me he's a fascist. He has fascist tendencies, but he's really too stupid and mentally ill to really wrap his brain around it so that he can, do all the crazy stuff that Hitler did. But he's definitely a fascist. What makes me really upset with the media is they won't call his obvious lies lies. Just say it's a lie. We all know it's a lie. Just say it's a lie. And the thing about it is, I think that one of the things they're concerned about is offending their Republican viewership and not seeming fair. But at the end of the day, this man is a grave danger to not just the United States, but to the world. Because if this place becomes as unstable as we think it could become, the whole world's going to be in a tizzy. This man is a very dangerous man. He really does need to be locked up, either in jail or some type of mental hospital, because his lies are killing people. They've already killed numerous people, particularly around COVID, and as I said before, the migrant crisis. He needs to be stopped.
Dan, do you think the media is being a little bit too cautious in calling his lies lies or his behavior fascist?
I don't think they're being too cautious about calling his behavior fascist, because they have not agreed on a working definition of fascism. So the term, it just makes it loaded. Like I said earlier, everybody I don't like is Hitler. You can just easily insert the word fascist there. So I understand the caution on that particular point. Unless we can come up with a working definition that everybody is following, then if they start calling him openly fascist, then they will lose all their credibility with the Republican based voters and Trump supporters that they are afraid of. And they have good reason to be, because we saw on January 6th, they got violent. When CNN would send people to cover Trump rallies, those people were putting themselves in danger.
And we endorsed Greg very early, but I had heard that he body slammed a reporter. And I said, oh, this is terrible. He's going to lose the election. Then I said, well, wait a minute. I know Montana pretty well. I think it might help him. And it did.
Just like if they were going to a war zone. So, and deliberately poking that bear, I can see them not wanting to use inflammatory language. Now, not pushing back on his, well, a lot of reporters did push back on the lies, but a lot of them didn't call them out as lies. Like, they softballed him, they gave him opportunity to clarify. But I do think that I think that they did need to push harder. But the reason that they didn't is because in the end, he would just get up and walk away. We saw that wonderful 60 Minutes interview where he did get the slightest bit of pushback from, I believe it was Savannah Guthrie.
No, Leslie Stahl.
Leslie Stahl. And he just got up and walked away, and then had
be careful.
Future Mrs. Trump, Hope Hicks, hand her a big binder of executive orders and say, this is my health plan. And her facial expression as she's flipping through them, it was priceless. Like, these aren't and she said out loud, these are not a health plan. This is not a replacement to the Affordable Health Care Act. This is a bunch of stuff that you just did to neuter it. So yeah, I do think that there was people calling out the lies, but they were more polite and civil than they really should have been about it. But I think that the use of the term fascism would have been seen as deliberately inflammatory and just resulted in his base saying, oh, well, here they're not even hiding how much they hate him anymore.
Well, it seems to me that the Republicans do not ever hesitate to call Bernie Sanders and AOC socialists. I mean, that just rolls right off their tongue. So I don't see why Democrats or opponents of Trump should be hesitant. Okay, Mary Wright.
Well, was the question not the news media? Because the news media is not an opponent.
Good point.
No, not yet. Not until me and Harvey get the rules straightened out.
Rules? In a knife fight? No rules. What?
Well, if there ain't gonna be any rules, let's get the fight started. Someone count 1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, go.
I was really rooting for you, Butch.
Well, thank you.
Mary writes, Democrats can't keep playing by the old rules because Republicans have burnt the rule book. Are there any more rules in adversarial politics? Do we have any rules in dealing with politics? Dan, what do you think?
I think it's sad that we don't, but no, there really aren't any rules. And this can be an opportunity, I think, because systems of oppression are built using rules. So if the rules were used to exclude a lot of people for a very long time. So we can expand them, we can change them, we can modify them, but I don't think 100 years ago we would have people like the Squad being elected to office, regardless of their political positions. These ladies could be vicious conservative firebrands of Rush Limbaugh level of ghoulish, but the fact that they were women of color, the fact that they were immigrants, single mothers, would have automatically precluded them according to the old rules. So maybe it's best that they just go away. I mean, I would like us to be more civil and have a more honest discourse, but sometimes you really do need to actually shake the tree and get people out of their comfort zone. So I'm choosing to see the death of the rules as an opportunity.
Okay. Pat, rules in politics. Dan sees them, get rid of them, and have an opportunity to rewrite some things. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know what the rules are, so I guess I would say I don't. But I think one of the things, and we just talked about it, one of the things that the Republicans have done is they've set up the background of the system to support their power grab. So ALEC and Fox News and Reagan and all that stuff.
I can't help it. There you go again.
I was just, again, I'm sorry that I always look stuff up, but I was trying to find somebody else's opinion about this. And one of the things they're saying, and I think it makes sense, and as Biden does things that are actually good for people, we need to shout it from the rafters. You know, I know we didn't get all the Afghans out of Afghanistan who helped us, but why don't we put the ones that did get out and let them talk about how helpful it was that they were and their family got out of there? Why don't we have one of the families that just got money and can now afford food for their children from the
Earned income credit?
Yeah. Why don't we get people out there just all the time talking about how these things have helped them to do better? I feel like they do that. And I feel like they ignore the things. I was reading something about how horrible it is in Mississippi right now because they've made bad choices governing, and people are dying, and people are in misery down there, and people are in poverty, and it's just awful. And they've just elected people after people that have just driven them into the ground. Well, we can talk about that if we want, but I really think we need to talk about what good has been done by some of the things that have been happening since Biden has been president, and keep talking about it. That's what we're trying to promote as Democrats, is the fact that government has a role in helping to lift people up. And if we could show how they lift people up, and then they can afford to have a car, and they can get a job, and they can actually go to work. I mean, that's what this thing is saying. And I think they're right. I think the playbook is now we need to talk about the good things that have been happening instead of dwelling on the things that we don't do right, because there's always going to be things we don't do right.
Merrick, Pat has a good rule. Talk about the good things. Do more of it. Are there any rules that you'd like to promote or think that we don't use anymore?
There are no rules. The game is over. There are no rules. And I would like the Democrats to grow back up. They're still trying to play nice with these people. And, I know that President Biden is an old hat in the Senate, and he's used to decorum and the tradition. Listen, they don't care nothing about that. We need to really be for real and get down to brass tacks. These people are not playing, and neither should we. And I think that the Democrats, because of the leadership being rather not even moderate, but conservative, and still playing this game with the Republicans, I think that people are over it. And, for instance, a lot of my friends are really frustrated with Biden around voting rights and this whole filibuster thing. And they're not going to budge. So what are we going to do? And I think it's time that Democrats either put up or shut up. Are you going to represent your constituents? If you are, you have to fight, because these people are bent on not just dominating the the House and the Senate, but they want to dramatically bring this country back 50 years. According to some sources that I've read, most Republicans think that the best time in American history was 1950. Well, I'm going to tell you something. As a Black person in America, having Black parents, I'm going to tell you, it was not the best time. So the Democrats need to fight harder and fight smarter as well.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did.
This last question about from Mary's book. Quote, one thing Donald did was expose the extent to which being an open racist is a winning proposition in the Republican Party. Unquote. Has the Republican Party become a comfortable home for openly racist white supremacists? Merrick?
Is this a trick question, Paul?
I just want to hear you expound on it.
Well, listen, these people have made it clear that they don't like people of color and they don't like people who are not Christian. And Donald Trump being the shrewd carnival barker and con man that he is, he picked up on that vibe and ran with it. I think that when you have a party that allows basically neo-Nazis to run, what else? A known seditionist, conspiracy theorists, you name it, they got it. Hillary Clinton was right. These are the deplorables. She was totally right. People were like, oh, why did you say that? Because she was right. When you have people in that party walking around with the Confederate flag, a symbol of traitors and murderers.
And slavery.
And they think that's okay. I didn't even mention the terrorism of Jim Crow. And they think that is okay. I mean, a spade is a spade. They are racist.
Dan, is it a comfortable place for racists, the Republican Party?
It's an extremely comfortable place, but they don't like to come right out and say it. And that's why they get so upset about what they choose to call critical race theory. And because it might make your little white kid feel bad that slaves built his state capitol, or might make you look at George Washington as maybe he wasn't the perfect human being because he owned people. So they want to just ignore the experience of the people that they brought here to be free labor and had no rights, and you could just kill them if you didn't like them, and the atrocities of slavery are many. They just want to forget that because that's ugly and that's hard to look at. And if I have to look at my history and say, oh, we owned people, that's not good, then I might feel bad about myself, even though I didn't do it. I benefited from it, and I have to admit that. And we live in a white supremacist society, and we speak the language that we've been taught by that white supremacist society, and it is hard and it is unpleasant, and they don't want to be experiencing that unpleasantness, but you have to if you're going to grow and move past it. And we owe a huge debt to African Americans and other people of color, and the Native Americans whose land we stole to build this country on. We did that, and we have to accept it, and they don't want to accept it because that might make them feel bad.
Pat, a good home for racists, white supremacists, the Republican Party?
I hear that there's some very good people there. Isn't that what?
Knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously.
Yes, that's
Just
what that,
knock
yes,
the hell-
yes, that was fair.
I think all of that's been not as obvious all the years that because of his rhetoric, because of his whole attitude, it emerged. And maybe that's good for us to see. Did we ever think we were over it? We are not over it. We need to deal with it. And this whole thing about critical race theory, these people wouldn't know critical race theory if it hit them in the butt. They have no idea what that is. I mean, I learned about it when I was at the university, and I don't have a really clear picture of what it is, except for it's systemic ways of dealing with people. That's what, and it's a theory, and they just, and you want to make you feel bad about George Washington not cutting down the cherry tree or whatever the heck which he didn't do, of course, but yes, I think they've made it very comfortable for people to be racist.
The final question addresses the elephant in our Zoom room, the upsurge of COVID Delta cases. We have Republican governors Abbott, DeSantis battling school districts over mask mandates, and the courts now too. We have Republican members of Congress suing Speaker Pelosi because her directive to wear masks on the House floor somehow violates their First Amendment rights to free speech. I haven't managed to research the party affiliation of the remaining unvaccinated registered voters, but you are free to make a guess as to which party most of them belong to. From Trump's initial declaration in January 2020 that this pandemic was just another fake news hoax, all the way to now, where the disease is running roughshod over the unvaccinated populations, how much responsibility does the Republican Party own for the catastrophe that is the coronavirus pandemic in the United States? Pat, how much responsibility do they bear, the Republican Party?
A lot. And I did look it up. And most of the unvaccinated people that are getting this are Republican and young. So yes, more Democrats have gotten vaccinated. Of course, there's a lot of people that are neither, but I think the way it's been handled from the beginning, this whole idea that it's my freedom. As a matter of fact, we have a school board candidate now saying that if she gets on the school board, she's gonna make sure children don't have to wear masks, because then they won't be able to breath. So I also would like it if people who ran for school board knew the difference between the word breath and the word breathe.
Merrick.
Yes. Do I think how much the Republican Party has for this responsibility for this catastrophe? I say, listen, they own it. When you have Governor DeSantis not even want to protect children, and Florida is on fire, and he wants to do nothing, that is almost criminal. I don't understand why none of these people are locked up right now, because that's almost criminal. And the misinformation, they literally have people taking horse dewormer because they don't want to take a free shot. Like, they own this. These people are morally bankrupt, and they're sinister, and it's evil. Public health is everybody's issue and concern. And the hypocrisy coming from that side. My body, my choice when it comes to masks. But when a woman or a female body person wants to do what they want with their body, everybody's in an uproar, and the church got to get involved, and then Pastor Dummy has to get, like, it's too much. They own it. I don't even know how they sleep at night, for real.
Merrick brought out a good point about the hypocrisy, Dan, about, we must have the freedom to go maskless, but women don't have the freedom to take care of what's going on inside their body. So how much ownership should the Republican Party have for this disaster?
Oh, they own it. I mean, we could have had this under control. We are about to start giving we have started giving Americans booster shots of vaccine to protect our vulnerable populations, when most of the world hasn't even had their first dose yet, because we chose to make this political for some reason. And like, I don't know. I'm a person who gets the flu shot every year because I don't like being sick. So the notion that I'm just gonna snort hydroxychloroquine or like aquarium chemicals or horse tranquilizers or something because I don't trust vaccine that doctors made. It, the level of stupid here boggles my mind, and I have to keep my opinions quiet for the most part, like when I'm online, because I work with some Republicans and I have to continue to work with them. So I just have to tune them out and ignore the stupid that I see in this arena. But I don't understand how infecting your voting base with a highly dangerous and communicable disease, especially when they're older for the most part. I don't see how that's a winning strategy. Even if you're going to make the younger and more liberal people not be able to vote, I still think if you kill all your voters, that's going to ultimately become a problem. Like if you want a Jonestown situation, just come out and do it. Don't be chicken and hide. Just pass out the Kool-Aid and be done with it. It's fine. The rest of us will carry on somehow.
So that may actually affect their voter suppression results if all their voters end up dying from COVID. I want to thank Merrick and Pat and Dan. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.